More as we get up with you, starting right now with the Football Friday, people. We are presented by ESPN Bet Sportsbook. Look at the squad we put together today. Graziano's got all the NFL injury updates that you need as we work our way towards Wild Card Weekend. That starts tomorrow. We got another Final Four college game tonight, and we had a thriller last night. Lewis and EJ and Paul Feinbaum is up early this morning. Let's take it to the Capital One Orange Bowl last night. The history on the line. The championship game on the line. Notre Dame, Penn State, the coaches ready to go. Penn State would dominate much of the first half. 2 minutes left in that half. And Lewis, watch the hit Riley Leonard takes here. Looked like it might have ended his night.
Yeah, it sure did. Look, that's a lot of being coming down on top of you. And then that whiplash effect of your head hitting the ground like that. Notre Dame fans were sitting there wondering, it can't start like this already.
He did return. Opening drive, third quarter. He's back in the game. They need the big play. And, EJ, they find it to Aeneas Williams.
They absolutely found it. And I said in this game, Riley Leonard's going to have to make some vertical throws down the football field. This was one of them. He made about 6 of them throughout the game, and that's what broke it open.
And that would lead to this, Lewis, doing what he does best.
Yeah, quarterback power, design, run. That's what Marcus Freeman has really, how he's constructed this offense all season long.
So we're tied at 10 to the fourth quarter. We go still tied. Game had been sluggish, and now it gets crazy. Jeremiah Love Lewis with the power.
This is one of the toughest runs you'll see all season long. Came into this game, banged up knee. He's putting that thing in the ground. You see the knee brace on it. He still won't go down. He hurdled somebody as well. He said he wouldn't do that either.
17-10 Notre Dame. Penn State coming back the other way. EJ Nicholas Singleton.
I love the way the running back played, especially because Drew Allen didn't have his best night. But Singleton, the other running back, they did an excellent job all night plowing in there for a touchdown.
That was his second touchdown. And then next Notre Dame possession. And the big mistake from Leonard.
Yeah, denied Dennis Sutton is one of the best defensive ends in the country. Goes about 6'5", 6'6". He's trying to get it over top of him. Can't get it over top somebody that tall, EJ.
That gives Penn State the opportunity again there. Singleton with his third touchdown of the night, and the Nittany Lions have a 24-17 lead. Does Notre Dame have an answer? Jaden Greathouse. Lewis, why is he so open?
Well, that's because the DB, Cam Miller, just basically fell down. And then safety slips in the open field. Look, DB, you can't fall down in that kind of situation. You got to know what your footing is like. You got to understand what the circumstances require.
So then here's your ball game. 40 seconds left. Penn State decides to get aggressive. And, they pay the price. We will break this play down over and over again. Drew Aller with the enormous mistake deep in his own territory at the finish. Christian Gray with the interception. Aller can't believe it. Franklin knows what it means. 23 seconds left in regulation. Notre Dame a first down away from being able to bleed it and kick it. And they get it. Greathouse, one of his 7 catches. Notre Dame in field goal range. Mitch Jeter comes out with a chance to be the hero forever.
The Orange Bowl is on Mitch Jeter's leg. Good snap, good hold, kick on its way, and the kick is good! Yes! Mitch Jeter with 7 seconds left gives the Irish a lead.
Tony Simeone with the call. Notre Dame is going to play for the national championship for the first time since 2013. A thriller on a Thursday night. Here's the coach after the win.
These guys are a bunch of savages. They're built different. I told them they're built different, and I'm so proud of them. They're a special group.
Can you appreciate what a wild, awesome game that was?
Yeah, just if I was a spectator, holy sorry.
It was indeed that. Put your feet up, folks, if you're a college football fan. We've got lots of time to talk about this. Lewis, EJ, and Paul Feinbaum, who is in Dallas for the game tonight between Texas and Ohio State. So we will give the Irish all of the credit in the world. We will spend a lot of time talking about what they did here, what Marcus Freeman has done with that program, with waking up the echoes, literally and figuratively. But this has to begin with the big decision made first by James Franklin, the coach of Penn State. They get the ball deep in their own territory. Final minute in a game in which no wide receiver for Penn State caught a pass the entire night. Paul, what do we say about the decision by Franklin to be aggressive in that final drive?
It was a massive mistake, Greeny, and I know that's easy to say after the fact, but you just laid it out. They had not gotten any production in that regard, and I just don't understand what James Franklin was thinking. I think sometimes when you have the record that he does, you get tired of seeing it on Get Up, you get tired of hearing about it, so you do something out of character. It's just baffled me why he would put such a high risk in a situation. Take a few shots, but make them safe. And go to overtime and try to win the game. You lost the momentum early. You had the 10-0 lead. Remember, you had a 10-0 lead against Ohio State, too. So I understand what's working behind him, but it turned out to be an absolute mess. And he will pay for it. And I know that there will be those who defend him. That's great. He's an outstanding coach, but he still hasn't won that big game.
For what it is worth, if we didn't get to show it in the highlight because you can't show the whole game, if you didn't see it, Penn State dominated the first half of this game. They should have had a bigger lead than they did. Drew Aller missed multiple opportunities early. EJ, you're a quarterback. Do you agree with Paul's assessment? Should they have been more conservative in that final minute?
Absolutely not. I disagree with Paul because in that moment, you try to go out and win the football game. And as a quarterback, that's what you've been practicing all season. You have 2 minutes before half, 2 minute end of game, inside a minute before the end of the game, and you try to go down the field and you're aggressive to give yourself a chance to get that field goal opportunity. And that's not on James Franklin. I'm calling the game the same way. Drew Aller's been great all season long up until these last really 3 games. He's been a bit inconsistent, right around 50-55% on completing the ball. If he makes that throw, even if it's on the back hip of a receiver, you have a chance to get down, you move on, you get a first down. But that's not on James Franklin as far as his decision to be aggressive with his quarterback. That's the guy he's trusted all season long, and I like the decision.
Can we make clear just through a quarterback's eyes? I will defer to your opinion. I thought Drew Aller had a very bad night all the way around last night. If you agree with that, should that have factored into the way Franklin handled that situation?
Snapping clear as a quarterback, man. You might have had a bad first half, a bad couple of throws, but in the moments when it comes down to the game being on the line, I want that pressure. And unfortunately, Drew Aller in that moment falters to that pressure.
Look, for 2 years, Drew Aller has taken care of the football for Penn State. Just, in the game previous against Boise, this guy was dropping dimes against Boise to Tyler Warren on a regular basis. He really, what had happened there on the last play, I mean, Amari Evans, who he threw the football to, that was like his third read. That's on Drew Aller. That's not on James Franklin. He was trying to hit Tyler Warren on a little out and up. It was covered. Route number 2 was covered. You can see it right there. That ball's got to be thrown out of bounds. It's got to be 2nd and 10. That is not – James Franklin didn't say, hey, you know what? If your first 2 routes are covered, I want you to go ahead and try and throw it backside when the corner is sitting inside. See if you can fit it in there, especially when we have a chance to go to the national championship game on the line. Just see if you can fit it in there, Drew. That's not what he's coaching. That's not what the situation called for. Drew Aller, you could see on his face, he knew immediately, I messed this up because I knew what I was supposed to do with this football. I knew it was supposed to be 2nd and 10, and we're still trying to move this ball down the field, not throw this ball across the field in a panic situation.
I can tell you who else said exactly what you just said. Drew Aller said exactly what you just said. Let me play that. Here was Aller after the game on the critical mistake.
I was going through my progression, got to the backside, and honestly, I was just trying to dirt it at his feet, but I should have just thrown it away when I felt the first 2 progressions not open just because of the situation we were in. But I was just trying to dirt it at Amari's feet, but just didn't execute what I was trying to do.
All right, EJ, you're a quarterback. I mean, take me through it. We have tape here. We have the play. Take me through that. Again, we're going to get to, for all the Notre Dame fans, I promise, we're going to give you all the credit in the world. You deserve it. You're playing for the national championship. But this is the decision and the play that wind up going such a long way towards deciding the game. Take me through the play.
Yeah, this is a full pure progression play. So it starts on your left. You have Tyler Warren as your first read. He's the out. He is covered, like Lewis said. Now you go up to that corner route. It almost ends up being like a smash concept here on the left side. He doesn't like that either. Then the other guy, the third read, is actually the guy that's right there. He's covered as well. This is just too late. It's the 4th read. So he's might have hit this in practice 20 times throughout the season, and he just decided to let it go. In that moment, I'm not necessarily mad about the throw. It's the location. And then you have the pressure right in front of you, but you're right. In that situation, we're always taught, don't make a bad play worse as a quarterback. And unfortunately, that's what he did, led to an interception and a short field for Notre Dame as well.
Look, you would assume, obviously, that Andy Koltanecki, who's on the coach-to-player communication system with him, is telling him, hey, look, understand the situation here. We don't have time for you to be running around trying to do a bunch of stuff anyway. So if the first 2 reads aren't there, just get it out of get the ball out of your hands, and we'll just go ahead and get 2nd and down. We've been running the football, getting about 10, 11 yards anyway. We'll have time to move this football down the field. But I'm sure the coach is telling you, look, no sacks, don't put the ball in harm's way. No sacks, don't put the ball in harm's way. He just went kind of off the grid, so to speak. He tried to make a play when really a play didn't need to be made at that moment. And it happens to everybody.
It happens to everybody, but also the pressure. And that's really what has been the saving grace of Notre Dame the entire playoff, and really maybe even the entire season.
Sure.
And this is the 13th game that they won in a row since they lost earlier to Northern Illinois. So that's why I say this is a three-phase football team. As much as the corner gets the love for making that play, I would say that defensive end getting in the face of Drew Aller caused that as well.
A reminder for anyone who wasn't watching the game is tied in that moment. Penn State is not behind, and they have 2 timeouts. Paul, you hear the conversation here. Jump back in.
Listen, I think it's all great. It's all interesting, but we're still talking about the same thing. They lost. And there are a lot of reasons why they lost. And I think, Greeny, you said it best. Drew Aller was not having a great game. So whether it was the third progression or not, James Franklin is the head coach. He makes $10 million a year. He's supposed to make the right decision. So let's not say it's not his fault. He made the call to take a chance. And that chance went awry, and that's why we're having a conversation. So, the devil's in the details, and that's all great. And I respect my colleagues here very much, but Penn State lost this game as they usually do in a big setting like this. Whose fault is that? Mine, yours, or James Franklin's?
Well, I mean, that is the reason. Well, put the full screen up. I mean, what he's talking about, for those who don't know, they call him Big Game James, and they don't mean it in a good way.
It's a bad stat, boy.
He is now 1-15 against top 5 teams at Penn State. The only head coach with a worse such record at any school in the AP poll era was Frank Beamer at Virginia Tech. So I'm having a hard time deciding who I agree with in this. To be completely honest with you, because I see what you're saying. Look, the first play, for those who didn't see the game, they take over on their 15-yard line. They hand it off, and they run the ball for like 12 or 13 yards.
Yeah. Yep.
So, like, they're moving a little bit, so I understand that. So I'm asking you as a quarterback now, whose job is it to make sure that the words in the quarterback's head are, no matter what happens, you can't do that? Literally, the only thing he couldn't possibly do, you said no sacks.
Right.
He's way better off getting sacked.
I'm saying no sacks. Don't put the ball in harm's way.
Right.
And you know they're telling them that.
Put them in the reverse
You know
order.
they are.
Yeah. But that's what I mean. Like, someone is saying that in his head, right? Over and over.
You would
even
assume.
Before they go out on the field.
You would assume. But that's on me. If I'm the quarterback in that position, and Drew Aller knows that, he's going to watch this tape for the next 3-4 months as they get into the spring practice and all that stuff, and he's going to sit and be sick about it. I mean, he had a bad night. The entire night, really, he's pressing right here. For him to make that throw in that situation is because he's had a bad game up to this point, and he's trying to make a play. So, on one hand, I fault him because he made the throw, but on the other hand, I get why he made the throw. The location is just bad.
And you know what? Look, Paul, I see your point.
So do I.
At the end of the day, 1-15 is 1-15.
I see it.
James Franklin has to assume responsibility for that. You can't just, it's not going to be Andy Colton-Necke, who's only been there calling plays for 1 year. They're not going to give it to him. They're not going to give it to anyone else. It's going to be James Franklin because that's attached to you. That's how head coaches are judged. But look, man, we understand that things kind of move in a continuum in football. Coaches give you instructions. You're supposed to go out there and kind of execute them. Drew Aller has executed them all year. Just look at his turnover ratio. Look at how he has protected the football. James is sitting there going, look, this is a big situation. I know my guy has struggled. I know he hasn't completed balls to wide receivers. Tyler Warren has been his best guy. They were trying to get the ball to Tyler Warren. If you can't get it to him, you got to get rid of this ball, man. You got to get us to second down, not to watching Notre Dame line up for a field goal.
Yeah, he only completed 12 passes. Aller did the entire night. 6 of them were to the tight end Warren, who I thought was the best player on the field in the game last night. 0 to wide receivers for what it's worth. And by the way, I was just told maybe the other best player on the field last night, Abdul Carter, has officially declared for the draft. This morning, Lewis and I will be doing the draft in April. We're going to hear his name early, right? I mean, he's first defensive player off the board kind of early.
We're going to do it together? Yeah.
Are we not going to do it? Well, unless you're the general manager of the Jets.
It was just the Jets.
I like that. I like that.
We'll see. Okay. Well, I'll be there.
But ask Lewis, would he be the first defensive player you would take?
No,
look, you saw how Abdul comes off the ball.
Yeah. Dude is
it's unbelievable. And I'll tell you what, he is dead serious when you talk to him, too, now.
Okay.
He's a fun dude.
Yeah. The people in South Bend are yelling and screaming at us because we've gone 14 minutes and we haven't said it yet. So congratulations to the Notre Dame Fighting Irish, a team that was left for dead in the middle of September when they lost a game to Northern Illinois, and all those people out there who love to hate on Notre Dame were burying them. Paul Feinbaum, what are the right things to say about the Notre Dame Fighting Irish in the first ever 12-team college football playoff, moving on to play for the national championship a week from Monday?
Well, I'm going to talk about a coach here as well, and that's Marcus Freeman. Just an extraordinary job of bringing them back. And Greeny, I sat here, and I was the first one to write them off and say that they're done. So let me compliment Marcus Freeman, but let me also go back 3 years to another point in time. Notre Dame hasn't been in a national championship game since the 12th season. That's when Brian Kelly, yes, Brian Kelly, lost by 28 points to Alabama. In Miami. And I just couldn't help but think that Brian Kelly 3 years ago said, I'm leaving Notre Dame because I want to win a national championship. And the only place I can do that is LSU. And here is Marcus Freeman, who was his assistant briefly, and he's now brought this team back. And so much credit to him and an amazing staff. And I'll let my friends here talk about the players that made the difference. But it was an amazing thing to watch.
What do we say about them this morning, EJ?
An excellent job. And this football team, there's one thing when you have talent like an Ohio State who is playing at a high level right now, but also when you have grit. And Coach Freeman talked about the savages on the defense. I would say their quarterback is a savage, man. This dude, even if he's having a rough game, and I said this earlier, or actually I said it yesterday, if he would have run over 30 yards, this team will win. And I'm watching throughout the game. He's not really able to run. Penn State did a good job of being gap sound, not giving him those opportunities. He ended up having 35 yards. And then the vertical passing game, he got better as the game went on. Had some interceptions in this, but for him to snap and clear and move on to the next play, and again, making these throws when it really counted, receivers getting open like this, an excellent job on all three phases by Notre Dame.
Yeah, that's kind of really what it's all about for Notre Dame is Riley Leonard being able to throw the football when they need it the most. Right. They're never going to look. Their DNA, their philosophy is not to put it on his back and then on his arm. It's about running the football, playing great defense, and taking the ball away. And look, Marcus said at halftime, he said, my guys won't panic. We're good. We need to run the football better. That'll open up the passing game. We need to make sure on defense we have everything buttoned up. We'll get the run game straightened out. It wasn't always perfect as far as the way they defended it, but Marcus knows what he's working with. And he knew, look, and we all knew probably going into this game, if you studied Notre Dame, you knew that Riley Leonard had to make a couple throws. It didn't need to be, he didn't need to throw for 300. He needed to make a couple. And he made a couple. And everything else fell into place. They played true to who they have been all year long. And this was, I'll tell you what, they ran the football also with two starters out up front. Yeah. Two people got hurt in that football game. And Penn State's defense the first half was eating them alive. Mm-hmm. Their defensive line was destroying them. They settled it down, which is a testament to Marcus, to the leadership on Notre Dame's team, and them understanding what the moment required. They're going to have to take it up a whole nother level in the next phase. But give them their credit because they responded exactly the way they needed to in the moment at the right time.
They will be an underdog, whoever they play in their next game, one would assume. Against Texas, one would guess something in the neighborhood of 4 points. Yep. If Ohio State looks as good as they've looked so far tonight, that it might be more than a touchdown in that one way or the other. It is worth saying Marcus Freeman becomes the first black head coach now ever to coach for a national championship in college football. He addressed that last night. It's obviously a significant part of the storyline here. And so let's give it a quick spin forward. You were there in Dallas to see Ohio State, Texas tonight. Paul Feinbaum, what do we say about Notre Dame now sitting there and waiting? Do we feel like they can complete what would be a dream/miracle season and win the whole national championship a week from Monday?
Yeah, I think they would have a better chance against Texas. But Greeny, you spent a lot of time in Chicago. You know that environment. And throughout the course of history, Notre Dame has been the most hated team in America. They're not anymore. Marcus Freeman has made them likable. I mean, I was with them last week in New Orleans, and fans are cheering. They're the underdog. And I just didn't think I would live long enough to watch Notre Dame in this likable underdog role. And they will be the underdog either against Texas or Ohio State. It's a little hard to calculate, but right now it doesn't seem like a great matchup for Notre Dame against either team. But I don't think that matters. To me, that the fact that they are there so quickly under Marcus Freeman is the story of the year in college football.
I agree with you. In his third season, Marcus Freeman has Notre Dame playing for the national championship again tonight here on ESPN. You will find out their opponent, Ohio State and Texas. You can't ask for a better matchup than that. We have plenty on that coming this morning, and we have tons on the NFL. We are just getting started on this Football Friday. Oh, we have another injured Eagle to deal with. Are the issues mounting too high in Philly for these Eagles to fly into the second round? We'll answer that. Plus, bad news, Baltimore. Does the absence of Zay mean Lamar and the Ravens won't get their flowers on Saturday night? We'll get you ready for all the NFL playoff action. Oh, what a morning. It's a Football Friday. Get up on ESPN. The Play.
Aller hit as he throws, and it is intercepted! Christian Gray picks it off. 41-yard attempt. Snap and hold are good. The kick is good!
Mitch Jeter, the second latest go-ahead score in regulation in CFP history. Prior to last night, kickers were 0 for 4 all time on go-ahead field goal attempts in the fourth quarter of college football playoff games. We will have much more on the thriller coming up as we continue. Plus, to the NFL, we will go. What can Brown do for you? What if the answer is absolutely nothing? Big injury news in Philadelphia. Are the Eagles about to get their wings clipped? We'll answer that question next.
Scored the first 10 points of the night. Notre Dame scored 17 in a row. Singleton and winds up in the end zone. 3 touchdowns for Nicholas Singleton. Penn State leads by a touchdown. Leonard throws wide open. Blinded Jalen Reed and score. Aller hit as he throws. Intercepted.
There is no moment too big for Mitch Jeter, and I had a lot of confidence in him in that moment.
The kick is good. Marcus Freeman is taking them to the championship game.
2 legendary programs. You cannot ask for more than they gave us in a game last night in a national semifinal. Notre Dame goes on to play for the championship. If you're just joining us, we just spent the first 20 minutes on all the big decisions that were made here, but there is one more to be made before I turn to the NFL, and we will have much, much more on last night's game coming up. Drew Aller had said, the quarterback of Penn State, who had a very rough night last night if you didn't see the game, had said he was going to go back to school. Mm-hmm. And then there has been some speculation because of how well he had been playing that perhaps he would change his mind. The decision will come now at some point soon. Do you believe he should go back to school?
No question. And, honestly, I think it sounds like that speculation was all coming from the outside, nothing that was generated from him personally. And I think you saw it. And having spoken to him a couple times, he is someone who's so young, both in terms of the way his facial expressions are young, the way he sounds is young. He's a big man, 6'5", 230 pounds. I mean, he's like EJ's size, although I don't think EJ's 230 now.
Probably 245.
Are you?
Oh, yeah, 245.
Oh, dang. Okay, well, you carry good. Look, I mean, but he looks like someone who needs more time. And I think being in Andy Koltnecki's offense, another season where now he can go through another spring, another fall camp, and really get the nuance down and and I think he's going to want to get the taste of this game out of his mouth. Yep. He will be in contention to maybe be the number 1 overall pick in 2026.
Correct. Mel has been saying on our podcast First Draft all year long, he needs to go back to school, Now, he has said the same thing about some other players, including Jalen Milroe, who is coming out in this year's draft. So we will wait and see. One way or the other, the stage is now set for tonight. We got one more game. Notre Dame will face the winner of tonight's second college football playoff semifinal matchup on ESPN. It'll be Ohio State taking on Texas in the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic. Our coverage will kick off at 7:30 Eastern tonight. Again, you can't ask for more than we got in these Final Four matchups. Last night's game was good, literally to the final snap. Let's hope that tonight gives us just as much drama. Meanwhile, we will get back to all of that. Let's get to the National Football League, and by far the most important story of the day, the continuing tragedy in Los Angeles with these wildfires. And the Rams and Vikings, not surprisingly, their game, Dan Graziano joins us, has been moved from Los Angeles because of that. What are the details that we can share
It'll be played on Monday night at State Farm Stadium, the home of the Arizona Cardinals in Glendale, Arizona, still at 8 p.m. Eastern as scheduled. The NFL made that decision last night. One of the main reasons is resource allocation. You need to have like 100, 150 first responder, police, on hand to put on an NFL game. And in Los Angeles right now, those folks all need to be somewhere else. And so that's one of the main reasons they decided to move it. In the meantime, the Rams, you see here, were able to practice yesterday at their facility. They sent some players home early because another fire had broken out near the facility, and people wanted to be able to check on their homes. As of now, the Rams are still scheduled to practice as normal today, but they're monitoring the air quality to make sure it's safe. And if not, they would move it probably to SoFi Stadium.
Okay, so one way or another, that's obviously a story that is well larger then football, the decision to move, it seems to everyone to be the right one and the obvious one. They'll play the game, and we look forward to watching it on Monday night on ESPN and ABC. Now, Dan, let's run the hurry up because there's a lot of injury news going into this wild card weekend, and so much of it coming from the game between the Packers and the Eagles, starting with Green Bay's quarterback.
Jordan Love was a full participant in practice yesterday for Green Bay with that elbow injury, which is a really good sign, obviously, that he should be good to go. Been given no indication all week that he wouldn't play. Obviously, questions about, will the elbow affect him, but you see him here throwing in practice. Nothing, doesn't seem like anything special on his arm there. It seems like he should be fine to play. Same with the Eagles quarterback, Jalen Hurts, who's been in concussion protocol since December 22nd. He was a full participant in practice on Thursday for the first time since entering concussion protocol. That's a key step. It seems like the only step he has left to clear is to be cleared by the independent neurotrauma consultant to play on Sunday. Barring a setback, barring a recurrence of concussion symptoms, he should be good to go for that game Sunday. And the other question is, will he have his top wide receiver, A.J. Brown, who's dealing with a knee injury? He did not practice at all on Thursday. I've been told the Eagles expect him to play in the game, and that the reason they held him out of practice Thursday was as part of a rest plan to make sure that he's at his best come Sunday. But he is dealing with a knee issue, and it's something worth watching as to whether it'll affect him in the game.
That feels enormously significant to me. Let's deal with both sides of this thing, Lewis. Let's start with the Eagles side of this. You've got a quarterback who's coming back, hasn't played in a long time. Will there be some rust? Will they call the game differently based upon him coming off the concussion? Now, all of a sudden, A.J. Brown has a knee. We assume he'll play, but who knows if he'll be at his best. Yeah. I'm thinking if I'm Green Bay, and this is just me, and you tell me, no matter what happens, Saquon Barkley is not beating me in this game. Right? I'm going to make someone whose name is not Saquon beat me in this game.
Yeah, obviously they're going to allocate significant resources, to use that phrase, to try and limit Saquon. So is every other team. And he still went over 2K. The guys that's special. The running game is just that special. But there's no doubt you making a more concentrated effort to say, hey, look, we have to make sure we take 26 out of the game. And any time when we're talking about the run game, that number one, that Jalen Hurts wants to put himself in harm's way, meaning they want to run the zone read, they want to run some kind of RPO, and he wants to get on the perimeter. Let's make sure, legally, of course, we touch him. We let him know that this is a football game. We let him know that, you know what, we have pads on, we have helmets, you have knee pads. Some people wear mouthpieces, some people don't. We're going to see how you feel and how you feel about the contact part of this game. Because when you take A.J. Brown out of it, obviously that shrinks the talent pool as far as the number of things we have to worry about. But without a doubt, you want to make sure, Jalen, you feeling okay? Yeah. You feeling okay, Jalen? You want to make sure you ramp that up legally, of course.
Yeah. No doubt. So I love that you said that, because as quarterbacks, we know that as well. Especially if we have a brain injury, whatever it is, like a concussion or an ankle or something like that. We know defenders are going to try to touch those things to make us knock us off our faults. But the other part for Jalen is he still has to be able to run the football. That's what he does best. And I also think that's a big reason why Saquon did get the 2K like he did, because you have to respect Jalen as a runner. So if he does pin and pull on some of those zone reads, be responsible and slide. Like, you got a long way to go to get to the Super Bowl, and this team needs him on the football field. So you can still run and make plays, but if you get 4 or 5 yards as a quarterback, that's a plus for us, because now it's 2nd and 5 instead of 2nd and 9, 2nd and 10.
If you're Kellen Moore and you're Nick Sirianni and you're calling your offense in this game, are you calling all of the designed quarterback run? Are you calling the tush push? Are you putting Jalen's head into harm's way as frequently as you normally would?
I think the game conditions will dictate that. It will be about whether or not they're able to slow down Saquon Barkley. If the passing game does start to falter, if they need that guy, if they need the quarterback to be a factor as far as being a true dual threat, then I think then you start calling some things, because look, if you don't win the game, you don't get a chance to play next week. So they're gonna start. They'll let the game dictate that.
Yeah, I think the Eagles have had an issue with slow starts this year, right? Like, there was that stretch where they didn't score in the first quarter, like for the first half of the season. The Packers want to play it as it evolved throughout the year. They want to play it with Josh Jacobs and beat you with the middle of their offensive line, and kind of, if they're able to do that and kind of control the first quarter, you do start to wonder if the Eagles start to get a little nervous and maybe change the way they're going to go about it.
And then let me show the video. Can we put the Jordan Love video back up there, please? Because EJ saw something very important on it as a quarterback. We speculated speculated yesterday with the elbow injury, the nerve, and maybe a little bit of less feeling in the fingers, whether or not he would be wearing a glove. And as you watched that video, you had some interesting observations.
Yeah, well, there's two things about wearing a glove as a quarterback. If you don't wear it all the time, it takes 3 or 4 days to get used to spinning the football with the glove. It's an adjustment. But if I'm practicing and I'm coming off an elbow injury where I had some weird feelings in my hands, I'm just still going to try to throw the football. So what I'm saying is, I think Jordan's healthy enough to still play in this football game. Now, the cautionary part for him is if this thing gets banged around, right. If you get into the second quarter and you try to brace yourself and you come down on that elbow, do you start to have some issues with the hand? But ultimately, I think he's fine enough and healthy enough to still throw without it.
You know what else that you like to see is every time he released the ball there, you don't see him shaking his hand. You don't see him looking at it, rubbing it or nothing. Yeah. There was no reaction to it whatsoever. And look, I don't know about any of y'all, but if that thing was hurting, I'd be letting people know, hey, look, every throw. It seems like it's a non-factor for him right now, which is a good sign.
Yes, otherwise they're going to, those guys are going to touch it.
They're going to touch that thing, yeah. Hey, how's that hand feel? How's that elbow?
Hand hard and all that kind of stuff. Hold on, man.
The quarterbacks are going to get touched on Sunday in Philadelphia. Meanwhile, Joe Fortenbaugh is here. He's got his best bets. He is our betting expert extraordinaire, and he is always the man with the plan. Let's get to that game first. Packers, Eagles, which side do you like?
5 with Philadelphia. They're rested. They've got home field. The crowd noise well balanced. But this is a bet against the Green Bay Packers, who, when they step up in class this season, tend to have a lot of problems. Against playoff teams this year, 2-5 straight up, 2-5 against the spread, allowing 27 points per game. Against the 3 best teams in the NFC this year, Detroit, Philly, and Minnesota, 0-5, allowing 30 points per game. Don't discount the loss of wide receiver Christian Watson to this offense. With him on the field, 6.8 yards per play. Without him, 5.4 yards per play. He stretches the field so other guys can eat. I think they're going to struggle. I like Philly to cover.
Stay in the state. What's your best bet? Steelers, Ravens, Saturday night.
Low-scoring game, under 43.5. Total open 46. It's been nothing but under money, and for good reason. The Baltimore defense has undergone a significant transformation since week 10 because they moved safety Kyle Hamilton to free safety exclusively. First 10 weeks of the year, look at that. They were 25th in scoring defense, 27th in EPA. Since moving Hamilton to free safety, first in scoring defense, first in defensive EPA. The Zay Flowers loss on offense for Baltimore, huge. He's their top wide receiver. He's Lamar's number one look, number one read most of the time. That's going to limit their offense. This is going to be a low-scoring game.
And then let's go to tonight's college game again. Here on ESPN, 7:30 Eastern, Ohio State, Texas, for a chance to play for the national championship. What's your best bet?
Laying it with the Buckeyes. It's sitting around 6. Now, that Ohio State offense has been unstoppable in the playoffs so far. What did we have? 83 points, 973 yards of offense in 2 games. But the handicap comes down to the Ohio State defense against Quinn Ewers and the Texas offense, who I think is going to struggle. Quinn Ewers against cover 1 defense this year, number 3 in the country in quarterback rating. He eats it up. But against cover 2 defense, that rating falls to 64th. It's average. What does Ohio State like to play now that we've reached the playoff? Cover 2. They played it about 7% of the time during the regular season. They've more than tripled that into the playoff. That's going to limit yours. That's going to limit Texas. Ohio State's going to cover as a result.
Best bets. Much more from Joe as we continue. Meanwhile, more NFL conversation here. A Baltimore bummer. Lamar losing his number 1 target. Do the Steelers now have the solution to stop the bleeding and beat the Ravens? We'll try and answer that question, and we'll see if Graziano can answer this one. And we like it. Since the merger in 1970, which coach has gone one and done in the playoffs the most times, meaning losing his team's first playoff game regardless of round? I know what it means. That's the question. The answer is next.
When you order
and Bet Sportsbook, wake up call, Notre Dame Radio. Here's your finish.
2nd and 8 for Leonard. Takes the shotgun snap, looking right, going to throw wide open. He's got Greathouse. Catches to the 30, cuts back in the 20. Jaden Greathouse is going to walk in to tie the game. What a throwing catch. 54 yards. Leonard to Greathouse, and Notre Dame strikes back with 4:38 to go in the